Hey gang, Ronan here. Welcome on back to the Cade and another episode of WTF Wednesday, where we take a look at games that on paper seem like a good idea, but in reality not so much. And this is going to be the first game that we profile from the Sega CD, which was a technological attachment that you could slap onto your Genesis or MegaDrive, depending on where in the world you lived in the early 1990s. It came out in Japan in 1991 and was released in North America in 1992. And for this WTF Wednesday, we're going to play Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective Volume 1, which goes along with our mouthful of titles that we have dealt with in this series. I mean, we've had Star Trek, we've had quite a few of them that are very multisyllabic. Now, this game came out in 1991, actually, and was released on multiple systems. It actually, along with the SegaCD, it came out on the TurboGrafx 16 CD platform. It also came out on DOS, Mac, and it's gone through a couple of iterations over its 30-plus year existence. It was reissued in a high-resolution remastered version for iPad, Microsoft Windows, and OS X systems in 2012. Now, what this game is it's a recreation of the classic Arthur Conan Doyle characters and a lot of Sherlock Holmes' most famous cases. In this game, you get to have 3 cases you can try. You can do the Mummy's Cursed, the Mystified Murderess, and the Tin Soldier. Now, one of the innovations about this game was that it was the first, or one of the first, full-motion video games that came out in the 16-bit era that I can recall. And there's been a lot of them, so don't quote me on which one was the first. I genuinely don't know. But this was among the first that came out in the early 90s. And a friend of mine had this game, and I was always curious about what it was about a game like this that would appeal to people, which was why I thought it would be perfect for a WTF Wednesday. Now, you can run either of these cases that you want. It's also, because of the nature of the game, you can load games, you can save games. It has the instructions of how things work, and then you have this little introduction from Holmes, which gives you an idea of how the FMV system on this worked.
London is not a beautiful city. Under the soot that covers its buildings is a teeming mass of 4 million souls trying to survive, mostly off of each other. You see it in the paper every day. Thankfully, we have the London Times to keep us informed of all these troubling activities with an unbiased eye and razor-sharp accuracy. We find this publication to be of invaluable assistance in our investigations, and I'm sure you will as well. Among the forces of evil which run rampant in this city, there are also, thankfully, 2 groups of individuals who will aid us in our cause. As we do, they attempt to right wrongs and restore harmony and civility to the streets of London. The first of these groups is a ragtag association of young ruffians. I call them the Baker Street Irregulars. Don't let them fool you. They may be scruffy and ill-bred, but they are on the right side of the law. They can go everywhere, see everything, and overhear everyone. They are my eyes and ears in the streets of London, unquestionably a tremendous asset in our work. They will help us in our investigations if they can. The other group is a far more civilized collection of gentlemen and institutions. I call them the Baker Street Regulars. They, too, will be extremely useful in our work. At the start of any investigation, do keep in mind that it is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Unwittingly, one begins to twist facts to suit theories instead of theories to suit facts. The people and places to whom I will now introduce you will help us to collect the facts. May we use them wisely. Come, the game's afoot.
So you can see in how the video, how pixelated it is, that it hasn't necessarily aged well. And now these are the characters that you can utilize to help you solve these different cases. So like in any Arthur Conan Doyle story, Holmes has his connections with Scotland Yard. He's got people on the street. He's got other ways that he can go and investigate crimes and solve them. I'm not going to worry about going through all those, but what we're going to do over the next probably 25 minutes or so is we're going to dive into the first case, which is The Mummy's Curse. Now, this game,
What rubbish! What bull!
when it was put together, had a budget of $2 million, and that was 1991.
We're off this early in the morning.
Indeed, Holmes.
So,
It's
in a lot of ways, this
Play
is
upon people's superstitions.
the equivalent of a
You
AAA
must be
budget
referring to the affair of the
for a
Mummy's
game that
Curse.
did not sell all that well. By 1994, all 3 volumes, there's 2 others along with this one, ended up selling a combined 360,000 copies across all of its platforms.
Because I dare
And
say I
of the
can
ones
say
that
it was much
were able to get
younger
reviewed, the TurboGrafx 16 CD one was by far the best received. Dragon gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. Wizard Magazine and All Game gave this version, the Sega CD version, a 2 out of 5, did All Game, and a B average in Wizard Magazine. In the review for Wizard, they cited that because it was groundbreaking at the time with the graphics and the ability to navigate through each scenario, that was ahead of the time and took full advantage of the multimedia options. But the trade-off is once you've completed the cases, there's no reason to go back and revisit them. So what you're able to do here is now we've got to be able to take a look at different things and start figuring out what is at the heart of this particular case. So we can check the news. We've got a directory of people we can look up. We've got our notes. We've got the case book that we can go back if we want to save the game or what have you. Then we have these areas that are currently blocked out. So these are our Baker Street irregulars. These are our street contacts. There's files we can look at, and then there is the ability to travel, which we have not done yet. So now I can take a look at the London Times. And it's a matter of taking a look through this whole... I mean, I can look through this whole paper as much as I wanted to. And it's going to give me a limited amount of information on what is relevant or not relevant to the case. So the first thing I can do is usually I would go and I would talk to Inspector Lestrade. Now, if you go and visit people...
Well, if it isn't Mr. Sherlock Holmes, London's most overly praised amateur sleuth, needing the help of the Yard again.
Are you going to stand for that, Holmes?
Let's just see who proceeds to solve this case, Watson. Inspector Lestrade, my good man, I'm looking into the cause of James Windibank's death.
I should have known. That murder has brought out every crank in the city. I think the professional police can wrap this one up.
All the same, could you tell us what you've discovered to date?
One dead archaeologist, no suspect, no motive.
And what of Andrew Weatherby's death? Have you looked into that?
I have talked to Captain Ramsey, but we have no leads. Look, I'm not even sure that Weatherby's murder falls into our jurisdiction. And if it doesn't, you're not going to find me worrying about it. As it is, I have enough murders to take care of.
So once you've gone through the scene, you see below you can either press the B button to return to the game or you can press C and replay it again. I'm just going to go back because we've got the names of the people we want to check out. And this is going to take a bit of lag time to be able to pull it up. So, we're looking for Windibank and Weatherby, so both of them have W in the name. So we'll go see if we can visit James Windibank first, or at least his family.
What did you learn, Watson?
Not a thing, Holmes.
You learned nothing?
Don't get testy, Holmes. There wasn't anyone about.
My humble apologies, Watson.
So if you find yourself running into dead ends like that, you get these little cutscenes that tell you you're going nowhere. And then we'll check the other W for Andrew Weatherby. I'm willing to bet we'll get the same thing, but this is very much what this game is about. It is simply about going and doing investigations,
I'm very sorry to intrude on you in your moment of grief.
and trying to piece together the relevant clues and facts to solve the case,
Long enough to know
which is very typical of a Sherlock Holmes type game.
Andrew was so unassuming. Everyone liked him.
The trade-off comes in trying to understand who would really get into games like this.
I'm sure you
And as has been a common thread in the series that we have gotten to this point in, it's the general thesis that a lot of these games that qualify for WTF Wednesday
Sorry.
are ones that
Open it yourself.
apply to a very, very niche audience. And as I said, the entire series of Sherlock Holmes sold 360,000 units in the 3 years it was released, which means it was not very popular, and by any metric was really a commercial failure. That it's built up enough of, I dare say, a cult audience to be able to go and take a look at seeing it re-released 30 years later, or 20 years later, I should say. So James Windibank is the professor of Egyptology and Science at London University, published a paper on the rare antiquities buried in the deserts of Arabia, ardently interested in the advancement of science, and has some difficulty with an anti-vivisectionist league over the past several years. Well, I can see why, because I don't think I would want to be vivisected anytime soon. So if he's at London University, I believe we can go over to the university, or at least we can go to London Library. We'll see if we can get anything here.
Here it is, Holmes. Egyptian mummies are embalmed bodies preserved to facilitate their resurrection. Many mummies have been found, and they are almost always the bodies of pharaohs. The pharaohs believed that one day their bodies would be brought back to life. See History of Egyptian Mummies by Pettigrew, London, 1834.
Very good, Watson.
So in many ways, this game is very similar to another one we profiled, which was Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? But that one was designed more for kids to help them understand geography and learn about different places of the world as an educational-based game. Now, you can make the same argument that Sherlock Holmes holds a similar function in that we want to be able to get people interested in problem solving and doing it in a way where you can easily follow in the footsteps of the greatest detective in contemporary fiction. And I know people are going to push back at me and go, hey, wait a minute, that's Batman's role. Yeah, I understand that, but Holmes was here first. So see if I will ask the irregulars if they've got any information on this guy. Nope. And nothing on file for Andrew Weatherby. So we don't know anything about Weatherby, but we know that one of our victims worked at London University. So let's see if we can find anything over there.
Such a tragedy. Fine men all and such outstanding scholars. I still can't quite get over the shock of it.
We understand.
Professor, we're looking for background information on these three men so that we can understand how their murders might tie together.
Well, let me begin with Dr. Turnbull. Ebenezer Turnbull was responsible for organizing the Carteret expedition. Quite a remarkable man, really. This was the first time he teamed up with James Windibank. Professor Windibank was one of our most popular lecturers. In fact, several of his former students were also eager to accompany him. I recall
So
him
it turns out
saying
there's
he was
actually
having
3
difficulty
victims
choosing.
involved in this, not 2.
Weatherby turned out to be the lucky one. Though it seems far from it now, doesn't it? I suppose Smith and Travis turned out to be the lucky ones after all.
Smith and Travis?
Peter Smith accepted the invitation to join another expedition. As for Philip Travis, he was quite keen on accompanying Professor Windibank. In fact, he became exceedingly upset when Andrew Weatherby, a postgraduate student in the department, was chosen instead. Took it rather personally, I should say.
So now we've got a couple of different leads that we can check out. And while we're doing that, it gives me a chance to kind of give you an idea about the console that this is running on. The Sega CD, like I said, it came out in North America in 1992, was released in Japan in late 1991. And while it was meant to help flesh out the rest of the Genesis's library, it wasn't nearly as popular as the Genesis itself. And it only ended up selling about 2.25 million Sega CD units, which caused Sega to end up discontinuing it to focus on building its own bespoke CD-ROM system, which ended up becoming the Saturn. And while a lot of people liked the ability to have games for the first time on a disk drive, which was something that the Super Nintendo didn't have, we didn't have the PlayStation yet, and this was the only real way to get these sort of games that didn't involve having a PC on it in your house, that the games didn't seem to run quite as well for some reason. Like, the actual technology in the Sega CD was not quite so sharp that it would end up becoming one that really just, a lot of people didn't want to spend the money to buy it. If I remember right, when this system came out, the Sega CD in the US in 1991 or 1992 was $299 just for the Sega CD to add on to the Genesis. So it was more expensive than the Genesis when it was brand spanking new. And a lot of people weren't going to justify dropping another $300 on an edition that could only play a specific amount of games. So actually what I want to do is I want to go over here and I want to pull up, because I know there was Smith and Turnbull who we heard about. Ebenezer Turnbull. Anything in the files on him? Third son of the Earl of Downey, age 6, he discovered a Roman ruin on his family's country estate where he continues to work to this day. Led a number of archaeological excursions, notably several to the Luxor-Karnak area, where he made significant discoveries. Well, we'll go see if we can have a word with him.
Dr. Turnbull, he was a strange one, he was. Hardly ever at home, always traipsing about a Lord knows where.
May I take a look at his things?
Oh, suit yourself. All he had is a big pile of books about Egyptian mummies and a few maps. He was a son of an earl, he was. So you hardly tell from looking at him, poor fellow. Do you really think this mummy thing's what done him in? Creepy, I says.
Now, the best-selling game for the Sega CD was actually Sonic the Hedgehog CD, which sold 1.5 million copies. And along with the Sega CD, Sega released the 32X, which was their first attempt to adapt 32-bit graphics onto the 16-bit Genesis. And it did not sell that well either. Let's see, so we want Peter Smith.
Sorry I can't help you, Ducky, but Mr. Smith has been out of the country since the middle of March. He's a good-looking bloke, except for the dirt under his fingernails.
So Smith has been out of the country, and we got a clue that he has dirt under his fingernails. Now, if there's another issue with this, is that every time you go and check something, you have to basically reboot where you were. So now I can go back here, check the files, and we have nothing on him. So let's see if the Baker Boys have anything about him. He's out of the country until March, which we already knew. Now, if I wanted to, I could actually try and go in front of the magistrate now and see if I could convince him that I've solved the case. But I haven't uncovered enough clues, and I haven't put together enough pieces of this puzzle to be able to do that. I will essentially get laughed out of the courtroom. But in essence, this is the game. You've got to be able to put together what the case is, figure out who did it and why, and then go from there. which, again, if this is the sort of thing you like, then this could be a very interesting game for you. If not, though, then it's one where you're probably going to look at it and not be thinking too much about why you would want to waste your time playing it. Now, for me, this is a game that, in a lot of ways, actually is one I would consider taking a look at, only because it appeals to my inner curiosity about solving puzzles and playing games like this.
Mr. Turnbull apparently left what little he had to the Egyptology department at London University. And Windbank left everything to his wife Hildegard.
What about Weatherby?
Ditto. Everything was left to his wife Clarissa, although being such a young chap, it hardly seems that he had much to leave at all.
So, in a lot of ways, this game reminds me of a game that I played back on the Nintendo Entertainment System called Deja Vu, which was the second game that came out from Kemco after Shadowgate, which we've already profiled in a one-day playthrough. I love Deja Vu. Deja Vu is one of my favorite Nintendo games of all time. It's genuinely one of my favorite video games of all time because it is a private eye post-World War II mystery. And the way it's presented is done in a way that really got my attention back in the day. Like, I'm a sucker for stuff like this. I've always grown up watching, like, cop shows. I am not a huge, like, Law and Order fan, but back in the day when it was on and there was nothing else to watch, it was great background noise for me. And I've watched the new, or not necessarily the new series now, but the Sherlock series with Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman. Went through all of it. I have my opinions about some of them, but on the whole, I didn't think they were that bad. So I could keep going through this and show you kind of how this works. And sometimes when you're going through and checking things out, it is possible that you can run yourself into a corner. It is possible if you're not paying attention to something.
But could I have a word with you, Sir Jasper? Dr. Watson, of course. Are you investigating the death of Samuel Sneed? I just finished with him.
No, we're interested in James Winterbank.
Ah, the mummy's latest victim, of course. Who hired Holmes for this one? King Tut?
Oh, that's a jolly good one. Actually, we don't have a client on this one.
Just for fun, eh? Well, about the only thing I can tell you is that mummy has very powerful hands.
What do you mean?
The trachea was crushed along with one of the vertebrae of the neck. Death was instantaneous. Snap.
But the papers reports say that there were mummy wrappings found round the neck.
Just window dressing. Without question, it was bare hands. The bruises and the way that the vertebrae was crushed leave no doubt about that.
Thank you very much for your time, Sir Jasper. We're very much appreciative.
Not at all, Watson. You will let me know when you've convicted the mummy.
Beg your pardon?
Well, so I can perform an autopsy on him. Would be most fascinating, don't you think?
And there isn't really a set amount of time you need to finish each case. You can go as long as you need to put all the clues together. So really, this is a game that you could beat if you really dive into it. I think you could probably finish the case in an hour, probably 2, but realistically, it would take you, I would think, fewer than 10 easily. But you have to remember, back 30 years ago, these sorts of games weren't designed to really be drug out over long stretches of time. They want to be able to get you to move from case to case. So it's really one that you can go at your own pace and your own leisure on it, and at that point determine really how, if you want to go from this case to the next one, or if you want to jump all the way to the third one. And then at that point, you can get Volume 2 and Volume 3. I'm playing these on Fusion 3.64, which is a free emulator. It does have a SegaCD option, so you're able to load it up directly that way. And I was able to find Volume 1, obviously, and Volume 2, but I was never able to find Volume 3. So if this is something that you're looking to try out, then maybe you want to give it a go. But again, this is definitely not a game for everybody, which was why I thought it would be perfect for a WTF Wednesday, because it's one where I know at the time when it was released that Icom Simulations, which is the company that made it, had really high hopes for it. And considering it was based on a tabletop game from I believe it came out in 1981, of the same name, it made sense that they would try and convert that into a video game format, which nowadays, with the surplus of tabletop games you can play, and obviously the amount of video games you can play, this is one. Will they try and make it today? I doubt it. I really do. I mean, granted, the full motion video aspect of it is long since passed, and you wouldn't have to spend the amount of money to hire actors or things like that for that capacity. You would need them, obviously, for the voice work. But is it one that I think that a studio, if they wanted to take it on, could do something with it? Being able to recreate a Victorian London turn of the century and do something to make Holmes's world and have things in it? Yeah, I certainly do. But I also think the luster has come off of that particular blossom for right now. Because again, we had the BBC series, which was both very popular and very polarizing. And around the same time, we had the Guy Ritchie films with Robert Downey Jr. as Sherlock Holmes. But all of that has tapered off in the last 10 years. So if there was a moment to really create this version of Holmes for modern video game audiences, it was really at that point. And now to do it at this stage, especially with the current state of the industry, I don't see that happening. But if you've ever played this game and you were able to get any enjoyment out of it, you were able to crack the cases and all, let me know down in the comments. I want to be able to get your feedback on these games, because again, it's one that, because it didn't reach a wide audience and because it wasn't ultimately successful by any real metric, 1990s or otherwise, I don't know if a lot of people saw it. But that, everybody, is Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective Volume 1 for the Sega CD. If you've enjoyed this, and I do hope you have, best way you can show it is hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new, ring the bell to be notified of the latest content. I do hope you got a chance to watch our one-day playthrough on Monday, where we went back to 1987 and played the very first game I got from my Nintendo Entertainment System, which is Konami's version of the classic 80s movie Top Gun, which the game plays nothing like the movie, but it's a game you can beat in a day. It's not going to just let you do it, though. And I do hope you guys tune in this weekend for more of our Dark Souls playthrough. We are almost done with it. We're past 40 episodes on it. We're not going to get to 50. I've already recorded all the episodes. I've wrapped the game, and I'm looking forward to getting those final episodes out so you can see how we managed to get through it all. And then probably in about once we get those posted, it'll probably be a week or two, and then we're going to bring back Sports Saturday and Sucker Punch Sunday from their hiatus. And in the meantime, we're also going to work on determining what our next overall playthrough is going to be. I will tell you right now, it won't be a game from the 2010s. It won't be a Dark Souls type game. I want to be able to take a break and try something different and go in a different direction for right now. Be sure to follow us on social media through Instagram and Threads at Ronan's Retrocade. Help spread the word about us so we can continue to build this community and make this channel bigger and better. And if there is a game you would like to see us feature from the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Super Nintendo, the Sega Master System, Sega Genesis or Mega Drive, SNK, Neo-Geo, Nintendo 64, Sega Saturn, Sega Dreamcast, PlayStation 1 or PlayStation 2, leave it in the comments below or drop me a line on social media. It can be any game from those consoles you want, including the Sega CD and the 32X, since we had one here today. As always, my name is Ronan. It's been great to spend this WTF Wednesday with you. Be safe, be well, happy gaming. We'll talk to you again this weekend for more of Dark Souls Remastered. Bye.